Hello, my name is Marlon Muraro. I'm an intercultural coach, and I'm about to be on the Prosperity Show online to talk about adaptation when you move out to a different culture, how to develop intercultural intelligence, and how to be effective with your intercultural team if you're a leader.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And if you're tuning in today, you're joining the place where we go beneath the surface. This is the number one space where we actually find exclusive content, behind the scenes method, untold strategies, and breakthroughs from real change makers. So you're not just getting surface or gloss, you're actually getting the story, the tension, and the journey towards transformation. And I am so excited with my guest coming in today, Marlon Muraro. Now, Marlon, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate. Very excited for this chat.
Oh, absolutely. You see, what I'm really excited about this, Marlon, is you've traveled around and you still maintained your composure. Some people go to another city and they automatically try to morph or assimilate and they lose themselves. And I can't wait to jump into your journey and how you've managed to, stay above board, right?
Okay, well, I might change on that note. I don't know, maybe my English accent will change as we move. I have a tendency to mimic the accent that I'm listening. So if that changes, and apologies beforehand, maybe my English, some words here and there are not the best, but I'll do my best.
Absolutely. You know what really fascinates me about people that travel and go places is you already have a culture, a language, and a way of being that the people in that area didn't even know exists. So we're here today and we're going to be experiencing all the different accents in all the different places you've been to. And I'm hoping you're not going to end up sounding a little bit Australian, South African, Zimbabwean.
Right. That will be fun. That will be fun to hear for sure.
Now, for those that are watching right now, I know we all have problems that we carry, the friction, the confusion, the silent defeats, but today's guest helps solve one such a core problem, which is when we go across cultures and it's all about relocating, all right? And also not only will it be just you relocating, but if you notice the world has become a global village and we're now connecting with people from any point in the world. So you might actually be working with global teams or dealing with cultural misfires. And what we're going to be talking about today is how do you not only survive, but thrive in scenarios like that. So you might be a CEO, a coach, or a consultant, and you're actually working with people that are overseas, and you are maybe trying to explain something to them, and they're not actually picking up what you're dropping down. All right. So it's one of those things that we never knew we needed help with up until we actually needed help with it. All right. So, I mean, Marlon, we could go on and try and frame, the things that we think are important. But of all the countries that you've lived in Brazil, in Mexico, in Turkey, in the US, and in Thailand. Is there a place that you really, really say, I think if I had my time to do it all over again, never again will I go back to this place?
Oh, come on. That's such a terrible question to start. No, I would go back to all those places and live that experience again. It was amazing.
Right.
Amazing. As you mentioned, of course, we have like our adjustment periods. So the first, I always in my consulting trainings and coaching, I always refer to 3, 6, 9, and 12 months, because I think those periods have clear moments that we can work with people and that our mindset is, adjusting. We're trying to understand things. The first three, I don't know if you've seen the learning curve for the expatriation is often a U curve or a W curve. And it's often the case that the first moments we're very excited. So everything is exciting, is new. Some people call the honeymoon phase, which is like the honeymoon, right? So, people leave the wet towel on top of the bed and nobody cares because it's the honeymoon phase and everybody's excited. But that tends to last something to 5-6 months, maybe. And then we start to really get in contact with the cultural shock and the cultural differences. And if you're moving to work, which is often the group I work with, so people that are moving for work and having their assignment in a different country and are leading a team, very international. So Brazilians going to China to lead a team in Shanghai and another team in Oman, for example, right? That comes with, some challenges, because if you're worried about adjusting sometimes to your, something very natural for us, to food, for example, right? Something on the personal level. You have that layer plus the layer of work, plus getting communication, and plus being effective in a different culture ASAP, right? Because companies moving you. So that's normally the people that I help and that I work with, making sure that they develop, or we try to get them started on developing cultural intelligence, where they can really connect with local people and connect with their team and get your assignments, going ASAP. And of course, helping families and helping spouses adapting as well. Because usually, and this is what we see, if the spouse is not happy in the move, when you move as a family, it's very likely that your assignment will end before the set term. So families and the spouses, it's really important to have that in mind. A lot of people go into expatriations with their family feeling super, happy. Everybody's okay. We said, good, we're going to move as a family. And then it becomes extra hard for the not working spouse, or the co-expat, as we say sometimes. And the assignments, become shaky at best, and then people end up leaving before the term. So helping people navigate these differences, helping people understand and connect more with culture, helping people get nuances that, we're not aware, even in our own culture. So me being Brazilian and then moving to Mexico, right? So how was that? And then from Mexico to Turkey. So by the time I moved to Turkey, I already had adapted a few Mexican practices, to say, right? For example, I remember in Turkey, they hated the way that I drive, because I was very aggressive. And maybe I picked up that on Mexico and Brazil before, right? And then, moving back to Mexico. So we did Brazil to Mexico. And then from Mexico, we went to Turkey, spent 4 years in Turkey. And then we moved back to Mexico. And that was my first repatriation style of experience, that going back to a country that is familiar. And as I said, I would do it all again. It's amazing, the opportunities, the connection we get to people, the expansion that we get, and I love connecting with people. And for your show, this is something very this is something that I had to learn. This is something that was something that I also had to develop. Believe it or not, I was a really shy kid that you would call my name and I would blush and not look at your face and run away. And all these years, connecting and reinventing myself and moving to different countries, having to establish myself and connect with people and make my support network. I learned that I quite like to talk with different people and and connect and make new friends and see different parts of the world and how people view things. So that was quite some experience there. Yes.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through all of that, because it just gives us a framework of, how you actually got this experience. But not only are you talking about, moving countries and moving cultures and things of that nature, but you also moved careers. So your life before you were before intercultural coaching, you started off as an accountant for multinationals. Yeah. And that really explains the shyness, because I know accountants just want to be behind their books and things of that nature. Tell us about, take us there. What was life like in those days?
Yeah, so I left a small, not so small city in Brazil called Curitiba. So I'm from Curitiba in Brazil, and not the biggest metropolis that we have in Brazil, that is São Paulo. Nearly 2 million inhabitants, Curitiba. And I had, the family plan to be an accountant, assume my mother's accounting firm, and then we, be in the family business. And then I started working for a multinational, for a bank in Brazil. And then I met my partner, and then he looked at me and said, okay, I have a global mobility program that I'm participating now. And then we got married and we moved. And it was, even before that, I had done a time in US working for Universal Studios in Orlando. So very not accounting job. And then to get, fluency with my English. And so, and when I went back to Brazil after this short experience, I noticed that I was also kind of losing my English skills, and I did not want to lose my English skills. So I went for teaching as well. I did a training and I became a teacher for a school back in Brazil. So I had still in Brazil, still without, before moving abroad, I had the two experiences of working in an office the whole day and then going to a school to teach English at the end of the day. And, one of them made me a bit happier than the other. Not to say that I didn't like to close a balance sheet and I didn't like accounting it. I did like it at the time. It feels like another life by now. But the teaching thing kind of got to me, and I felt really excited about, helping others with language skills. And then when we move abroad, it was like, okay, so opportunity and time to reinvent myself, right? So I went for, teacher positions, and I became full-time teacher, taught a lot of classes for Portuguese in Mexico. A lot of people wanted to learn Portuguese in Mexico at the time. And keeping with my background, I always taught in companies. So from, Bayer, Walmart, Nestle, Uber, all of the big corporations. Those were my, group and students from these corporations. I did my CELTA training, which is the Cambridge CELTA training to be an adult teacher for English as a second language. Was amazing, best investment I did at the time. So I was really happy to continue and then polish my skills. And then I continued, teaching as we were living in different countries, which was a pocket career. Do you know if you heard the term to be a pocket career? So something that you can, carry with you if you move. These days is a lot easier, right? Because we do virtual and nobody's panicking about virtual classes. 10 years ago was quite difficult to convince students to, participate in the virtual class. So I always had my students, some in Brazil, some in US, some in Mexico, and always teaching virtual, even like many years before the pandemic. And then we moved to Thailand and something shift again. That was like, okay, another opportunity to reinvent and what else do I want? And Thailand has this beautiful Buddhist energy that, makes you understand things.
Yeah.
Maybe if you live there long enough, you
Mm.
probably get, a bit shaken. I always say this, Prosper, to my expats, right? There's some moves, from and to some countries that they will shake you a little. It's like get you out of your comfort zone, push you a little. But there's some moves and there's some countries that will get you by your heels, hang you and shake until the last the last thing that you think is right, drops out of you.
Mm.
And it depends on personality, right? I have some Brazilian expats that I'm working with that the move to Mexico was, strong enough already to shake them to the core. And it's
Mm.
those simple adaptations, right? You talk about food. And you're like, oh, but Mexican food is amazing. Yes, but it's not Brazilian food.
Absolutely. And then there's always that yeah. So you mentioned Universal Studios, and that sort of got my attention. What were you doing? Was it at the theme park, or were you actually at the studios acting?
At the theme park. So it was like a summer job for 4 months, summer job for Brazilians, right? So it was a summer job for 4 months, helping and attending and guest customer relations. It was amazing. Like I really got to discover a part of me that wanted to interact with people and be smiley and be happy and welcome people to the park every morning with a happy attitude. And
Yeah, it's a happy place. I mean,
so
people are coming there to be entertained, and that's one thing
yeah,
that actually, if you put yourself in a position for things like that. But you then mentioned that mom was an accountant, and obviously
yeah,
you wanted to just transition into that sort of role. And I'm also
yeah.
working on the basis that you did mention you were a shy kid. Now, was there an expectation for you to actually be successful in life based on those parameters?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like here we have our, the family firm, and you can, you take care of the family firm
Mm.
whenever, and then life, has other plans, and things happen, and
Mm.
and if I learned something in the last 15 years, moving to different countries, being an expat, a co-expat, is that you can have a beautiful plan and it might work out, and it's good that it works out, but if it doesn't work out, it's amazing that it didn't work out. So
Yeah.
this being
Mm.
open to the experience, right? Being open to whatever life throws at us, right? Make a lemonade, as you say.
Absolutely. I like that. See, what really fascinates me here is the reinvention at every posting. Every time you got to a place, you would look around and say, who am I becoming in this particular scenario? Not
Yeah.
necessarily waiting for the place to define that for you. Can you maybe touch up on that a little bit? Because that is very important. And there's a statement that people say, wherever you are, there you are. So it doesn't matter whatever it is that you're going to be doing. If you show up with the wrong attitude, or like you were saying, people are saying, but Brazilian food is better. You know what I mean? It creates a different scenario for you. Talk about the reinvention there.
Yeah, it's I guess it's linked to personality for sure. I mean, there's people that will have a harder time, and people who will have a easier time when moving abroad. For me, and for my personality, that I'm curious, I always want something more and extra and something interesting, and the jobs that I do are all connected to helping people and interacting with people, which was the discovery that I made in those previous experiences. But it's based on personality. For me, it was very an opportunity moment. You know, like getting the moment as in seeing the moment as an opportunity that I could, okay, maybe I'm new to this place and I'm going to introduce myself for these people. Who do I want them to meet? Yeah, who do I want them to meet? What is the person that I would, like to present and make sure that, I connect with people in a very authentic level. With that, I always had some, we're not, how can I put this? Let me think a little. How can I put this? It doesn't mean that we have to click with everybody that we meet. But for me personally, I need substance. I need, connection, real connection, openness, raw, and that we can talk about anything and no judgment. And I want to hear your life story. And in these, posts that we had in this experience in countries, I often got to meet people. And first time I met them, I'm like, wow, I really like her personality. We should be friends.
Right.
Which is a hard thing to do as an adult, right? How do you make friends with local people that have their circle of friends, are not looking for new friends? And I'm like, I really like your personality. Look, I have 1 year more in this place, right? I have 1 year left in this place. So can we become friends? I really like your energy. I think we can, interact and do some things, funny, go for a meal, have dinners, connect, establish some friendship. So that was the beauty of connecting, but it's, I guess, some people would prefer, or some people would not be as open to the experience.
See, what I'm hearing from you there, Marlon, is, if it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have an opportunity to leave. If you find that the area that you're in is not really giving you back what you want, you could just go someplace else and reinvent yourself. And the one thing I know about going to places is your name is Marlon, right? But even if you look like a John or a James, nobody's going to call you, I think I'm going to call you James. Whatever you give them as your name is exactly how they respond back to you, as they're not going to try and figure you out. You need to give that to people. And I think that's a fun position to be in, especially if you're ready for it and you're already aware that
especially if you're new. Especially if you're new, right? If you're having the opportunity to reinvent yourself in a new place, great. What are the best things that you want to bring forward, right? What is your best characteristics you want to tell people, right?
Yeah.
But every time we moved, I kind of had in my mind, like, okay, so this is an opportunity. I can reinvent myself. So what Marlon will I want to present there? And often I trained as well how to be more open and talk with everybody and be fun. And so, yeah.
Right. So at what moment did you then decide, you know what, I think I need to actually help people to start living across cultures better? Was there like a turning point, or did you just see yourself doing it more often and you're like, I think this is my jam?
Yeah. So when we were talking about change, right? And again, any type of change is chaotic, can be difficult, right? So if you, start uni, or if you start a postgrad, or if you change schools, and if you get into a relationship, when you get married, or when you move to a different country, right? Starting a different job getting to know all of those moments, they have their level of, hardship in a way. What we did as a couple, me and my partner, is that we gather all of those and we moved to a different country. So we were both starting a family. We were both starting new jobs. We were both starting in a new country. So it was very stressful in the beginning. And I really feel now that I, work with this and I help others in the same situation that I was many times. If I had the kind of support that I give today to these people, I know how much of a difference I can make in their lives. I know. My experience, my journey would have been completely different. Not to say that, it wasn't amazing. It was. But it would have been even better. Right? More structure, more proactive even, more focus, more results driven maybe. So when I saw this, and then as I was mentioning, right? So we're in Thailand. My values are getting like shaken, and I'm reinventing myself. And Thailand is a great place to do that. Or probably anywhere in Asia is also a good place that you can reinvent yourself. For me, I'm from Latin culture. And then I said, okay, I need more. What more can I do? Right. So I feel like my teaching is great. I can manage all this. I'm not stressed anymore about teaching, which is like, I'm happy with teaching, but I want more. And then I did my year-long coaching training, which was a business coaching training. And then I said, I started the coaching training, not really knowing what I wanted after the training, but I was like, okay, I can do coaching. Sounds interesting. It's not therapy, so okay, because maybe I don't have the skills to do therapy. It's not counseling. I don't do counseling, right? That stays for the professionals on that area. But I fell in love with coaching and sitting down with people and hearing and helping them design their plan and where they want to, reach, and helping them achieving their plans. Really, really fell in love with it. And then through a contact of the coaching course, they put me in contact with a consulting firm that was doing intercultural training. And they needed a Brazilian, which had experience in Mexico, because they were sending Brazilians to Mexico. And I was like, okay, I'm the guy, right? I can do that for sure.
Yeah.
And that was like my first landing in the intercultural area, which was quite interesting. It was putting names to all of my experience. Getting the frameworks, getting the ideas, getting the tools to navigate and help others navigate all of my life experience. So that was really, really fun and it came in a moment for me that I moved back to Brazil. So I did a movement that is the repatriation, right? As we come back to live in our countries. So for me, it was perfect timing.
Absolutely. And it's things like this, the serendipity of it all, that you're the right kind of person with the right experience and with the right temperament for you to go ahead and do certain things, and also the eye to see those things, because some people might not actually notice that this is the great opportunity that they're receiving. Now, you did mention at the start that change is chaotic. Now, were there any internal fears maybe on the day you actually then transitioned that, I'm going to be doing this, even though you had the experience, you had the message and everything else, but you hadn't gotten the names for the actual frameworks? Were there any identity doubts? Did you afraid you were going to lose money or credibility or, things of that nature? Was there anything that was, just not sitting well with you with all of this?
Maybe internally there was a very full security in the sense that it's like, oh, yeah, of course I know this, right? It's my life. But it's the same thing as, start to teach your own language. Have you tried to teach your own language? Which is like, people will ask, but what's the difference between present perfect and simple past? And people be like, oh, I really don't know, but I know how to use that. Yeah, exactly. That was the moment, right?
Right.
So I had this internal, maybe full security, which is like, yeah, of course. I mean, this is my background, right? It's what I did. It's my life.
Mm.
And I did what I was good at doing. That is study. So again, go back to the books, and I studied and I talked to people. I joined intercultural groups. CETAR is a great intercultural group. There's always events happening. There's groups in CETAR Asia, Europe, Brazil, US. And then I joined the group, started talking with other people in the area, started doing freelance for other companies, including in Brazil, in the US, for, different expats position. And, there was this was the transition moment. But again, for me, it was something that I was already looking for, because it was a way to also keep me in touch with this period of my life that happened, outside, talking with different people. So now I talk with foreigners coming to Brazil, and I get to explain them what is Brazil like. And then I look at, our material from what is Brazil mentality. And I'm like, oh, that is really true. And it's, again, the same idea, right? I am Brazilian. I've been Brazilian. I do things as a Brazilian does, but am I really Brazilian now? 15 years back to my country, And then I land in Brazil and I go to the streets and people talk in English with me. And I'm like, why? What's happening? Is it my haircut? Right. So that was my moment of transitioning. And I've been doing this for the last 3 years now. So now I'm feeling very much confident into going into a session, help an expat move and so.
Absolutely. Now, as you sort of saying, culture is invisible wiring. This is something you're born with amongst the people that you're in. And like you say, when you go to different places, you have to sort of readjust or reframe, or, do you know what I mean? Reinvent yourself, which means you're morphing into, it's still you, but a whole different person. And then, like you said, you also had the opportunity to repatriate. And then now people are looking at you and speaking to you in a whole different way, because maybe it's things that you have adopted along the way. Do we lose who we are if we move to other places? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people are afraid of.
No, and we have an onion model, if I'm not mistaken, is from Hofstede. So you have the onion model, which is, you have your inner culture or your parents' culture. And then you have your bigger family culture, and then you have your, city culture, your state culture, your country culture. So when we meet people from different countries, we are always meeting in the outer layer of the cultures. We're always meeting in the national level of cultures. Right? So for you, moving from Zimbabwe to Melbourne, your first contact is with the outer layer, right? Is with the nation layer. But for you to understand the differences between Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne and, the outback, how long will it take, if you don't live in those places?
Makes sense.
And that's what happens with culture, right? It takes time to learn. But of course, if you're an expat moving to a different country to work, or if you're a company, another person, you might have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I think very few companies are doing 4 years. No company is doing any more 4 years. So it's usually from 2 to 3 years nowadays. and you don't have that much of time to really get to know the culture. So in the training, we can help with that. Right? So get those shortcuts. Just say, oh, in the country level, Australians are more or less like this. Right. In the country level, Brazilians are more or less like this. And Prosper, I'm talking about culture. So 2 + 2, it never equals 4. Of course, in your day-to-day, you will find people.
Exactly. Look at my fingers. No 2 fingers on the same hand out, the same height, but they're all on the same. Yeah. Exactly. So it could never be all the same. And I understand what you're saying. You see, a lot of people outside of Australia right now would think we drink Foster's beer and we put a shrimp on the barbie. But I have been around here going on 12 years. I've maybe come across one Foster's beer, and it wasn't anywhere like, it was like somebody was actually using it as decoration. I've never really seen it.
Yeah. and what is the bread spread?
Vegemite, right? Yeah, that
right.
Oh, that is. They give you at the end, and if you squirm your face, then you don't get a visa.
Right. So all of those things, and all of those, go into the account of, if you're moving to a different country, how do you get, that knowledge faster? How do you connect with people faster? Because you might have 2 years in a project, and you have, very straightforward objectives, and you have to raise your team up to this level in 2 years.
But you've got signature frameworks or tools that you use. I think you've got the DMIS, and then the
many tools from DMIS, from Milton Bennett, which tells us of this transition, what's happening during these transitions, which helps people look back, understand more or less where they are at in their adaptation process, in their adaptation period. So if you're either in denial or bargaining or already accepting, I always say that the key understanding when you move abroad is the understanding that you are not going to change the country. It's the hardest thing for people to understand, but once you accept that, once the Brazilian moving to Mexico accept that he is not going to change Mexico. And once you accepted that you're not going to change Australia,
it is what it's going to be.
Then your process to integration and your process to acceptance towards integration will happen. So these mindsets. And we have a methodology called Cultural Dimensions by Hofstede. Well, started with Hofstede. Now we have other people working on the dimensions. Most commonly is M.E.D.I.A with her book, The Cultural Map. We have other methodologies from Richard Lewis, which puts countries in a triangle of multi-active, reactive, and linear active, which is an interesting comparison when we're talking east and west in the world. So that's a good tool that we use sometimes. But those dimensions give us the values of this group. And that's an excellent start. That's excellent start.
I like how you say you can't change a country, but like we have established, you can reinvent yourself to match that sort of country. So you also mentioned while we started that there is the core expat, and especially for those that are moving with somebody else other than themselves or teams other than themselves. How then would they prepare, or how do you help the core expert prepare, especially when they're obviously not going to be somewhat involved in the day-to-day of, the country, and they probably stay at home and they're just really stuck in their own bubble?
Yeah. And curious enough, or call it destiny, especially these months, I helped 2-3 families that the co-expat was really in shock. Was a very difficult moment for the spouse, the accompanying spouse. And one thing that I always try to do in my sessions is, okay, so let's take a step back and let's look at what you already achieved when you moved, right? Because it's been 3 months, it's been 3 months is too much. It's been 3 weeks, it's been a couple of weeks, so people are already settled in. So we take a step back to recognize the small victories, because sometimes we're projecting too much into, I want to have my perfect life already. Right. And that takes time because you have to build your structures back from zero. So we take a little step back, and I was like, okay, so what happened in these weeks, right? How much did you achieve? Let's do a little celebration of these moments that, and it's often the case that people, when we do this in session, people look at me as like, they start to smile because they start to recognize how much effort they put into and how much effort they're actually making and how much they achieved. So I was talking with this couple, and I started with this process with them because I could see that the spouse was really, feeling not so good. And then we start chatting, and the spouse tells me, but it was so hard because I had to go to the government to talk about the papers of my son. And then in the end, between Portuguese, Spanish, and a little English, we got the papers, everything was done. This is so hard. And I'm like, gee, you went to talk with the government and you manage it?
Right. So people give themselves very little credit for hard things, which obviously for them.
Come on. I mean, even in our own countries, if you have to go and talk with the government, it's like, oh, let's see if it works out, right?
I like what
maybe in Latin America. Okay.
Then you've got another story. I like how you say that you can't change the country, and in reference to paperwork and how governments work, because some governments just work the way they do. Some people are still in this process of, you know what I mean, like putting a stamp onto thing, and things are probably not electronic, so you can't bring your expectations into a country and things like that. So what is it that you normally would do?
So that's the idea, that we have to normalize the experience. Yes, there's a moment of migratory grief. People are grieving because they left their structures, they left family, they left friends, they left everything that was common and familiar. People are grieving. So we have to normalize it. We have to acknowledge it first. And then celebrating the small victories will help you, give you this boost to say, all right, I'm on track. I'm on track. And to give like a full circle, I have an objective. If it's either learn the language, if it's join I think it cut a little. So to circle back, right? Have a full picture here. Have an objective. Have something that you want to do and that will make your experience of value for you. And it has to be on the personal level. It has to be something very personal. So, I don't know, learn the language, right? This is often the tip that we give everybody, is like, learn the local language. So you feel integrated, you feel you can connect, you don't feel stuck at home and you cannot talk with other people.
I remember I went to Germany once, Marlon, and one of the things that back in that time, my idea of traveling and being in a place was being able to order beer and, talk to the person in a little bit, you know what I mean? So I would go to a different place and I would ask for pills or whatever type of drink that I wanted at that particular time. And we could just have a 2-minute sort of exchange. And then pretty much after that, that will be it. But I think some people are afraid of change. Like you say, change is chaotic, you know what I mean? And some people are afraid of also being a rookie, because when you get to a new place, you are by definition a rookie. You're starting from scratch, just about learning from, and people don't like that.
And you're gonna make mistakes. Everybody will. And the spouses might not tell, but even the working spouses, they make mistakes.
Yes.
And things might not go their way because they're still, like being very direct in a very direct style of communication in a country where direct communication and confrontation is really bad and will not get you the results. So to go back to your question before, right? A lot of people assume that is the chameleon effect. I'll just like change my personality and then I'll be fine. And that will not work because we have our personal values and we have our history and we have our culture. So it will work at a certain point, but it will get you up to there. So we have to add, we have to gather, we have to collect. And understanding that, yes, there's possibilities. There's not just straight communication. There's, different ways of communicating. I have expats that they come to Brazil and then I tell them, right? Oh, but you're going to a meeting with a Brazilian. So look, Brazilians are very relational, right? We need relationship. And we like relationship at work. So I tell my, Norwegian expats to come to Brazil, go to the company. And when you start a company meeting inside the company, ask about the Brazilians' weekend. What did they do? How was the weekend? That would take 5-10 minutes. And some Europeans that I've worked with looked at me as like, why? I don't want to know about the weekend. We're at work. And I'm like, yes, I understand that for you, but you also have to understand that, if you ask about your weekend of, the weekend of your Brazilian colleague, work problems will probably solve themselves because the Brazilians will be more willing to cooperate with someone that is interested in that, wants to establish a relationship. So this is one tip that it works.
I like that. Not only does that get you become amicable with these people, but it actually helps you build empathy, because from there you can now understand maybe the reason why they're not working in the way they should be is because maybe their weekend had something to do with it, and now you've got a point of reference.
Perfect.
And maybe let's speak in terms of CEOs that have got virtual teams. I'll tell you one thing that I actually learned without realizing. Okay, so you see how the frame in your video right now only shows us, the beats that we want to see. But you've been talking about your partner. He could actually be sitting right across from you. Yeah. And there's certain things that you cannot. There's certain things that you cannot talk or discuss or divulge. And there's also certain things that you would not want me to voice out loud. Even though you've got headphones, they might hear it, or your reaction might send a signal to them that something might be wrong. Is there anything that you also do in terms of that for people to actually have an understanding of when maybe somebody's not comfortable or somebody is just in, even if it's on video and they're in a whole different cultural setting?
Good point. I didn't have any extreme situations, luckily. Fortunate. I didn't have any extreme situations on that. But the training that I got helped me to pick up on a lot of subtleties.
Right.
And I can tell, and I can see, and I know when people have a hard time opening, and I know when people have a hard time connecting and sharing. Sometimes we just gotta say, you know what, this session is going. This is what I can give you now because this is what you are ready to receive, right?
Okay.
And I had other expats that said, you know what, I need an extra session just for the spouse, because they understood how much important the happiness of the spouse is. And they said, we need an extra session just for the spouse. And then I got to sit and chat only with the spouse. And sometimes we get to hear more in-depth conversations and, you know, try to help as much as we can and give suggestions and welcome and normalize the experience. Because, you know, until now, for me, I mean, most of the time people need to share, people need the comfort, people need to hear that they're doing okay, even though they don't see it, but people need to hear they're doing okay.
So when can somebody start their journey towards looking for someone like you? Like when they've been given the visa, or when they know in about 6 months they're going to be coming to you, or when they've landed in the country and they're like, oh, they drive.
No, that's too late. No, that is too late for sure. Which is often the moment that they will come for training, they will come for coaching, but that is too late. If you're in that moment, that is too late already. Then we will do remediate work, right? Not preparation work. Exactly. And don't think too much. If you think too much, your brain will like lose, and you probably will make a wrong turn if you're in that situation of the driving. But in time, I would say, if you have a date that you're moving, if you know papers are good, you finalize the negotiations and contract and agreement, so you have a date. Ideally, we would start working a month before, or even 2 months before the move. But a month is a good time. So a month before moving, so that we can start laying the ground for these first 3 months. When you land, what you expect, what will happen. You get a headache because you're trying to understand a different language. You feel a lot tired because of jet lag or not, but you feel very much more tired working and talking with other people. So we start laying the ground for the first 3 months. And then some sessions before and some sessions after the move, where people really need then to go out of their comfort zone, really go out, really explore, really get, connected and start establishing the structures. So programs would, something like this. I would stay minimum 6 1-hour sessions. If we can do 10 1-hour sessions, amazing. Then we can cover a lot, and we can make sure that people are welcome and people are really connected with the local culture, new culture, and so. And if you have kids, then it's a good session to address that for the co-expatriates, the spouse that is accompanying. Also a good session to address their needs specifically. So a good timing would be like a month before moving. A month before moving.
Absolutely. And where could they go to on the
But again, I know that people will come, okay, no, I really need help because it's 4 weeks. I've been talking with my team the same thing. I still don't get the results that I'm expecting. What's happening, right? And then we're like, okay, so let's work on that. Yeah.
And where on the internet can they go, Marlon, for them to maybe start this process?
Yeah, I have a website, marloncultural.com. You can also find my LinkedIn, Marlon Muraro on LinkedIn. If you need my email, I can give you my email address, but marloncultural.com, you can find my information and ways to contact me.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below so that we can
Excellent.
get people to go on there. And obviously, if you're listening right now, I also want you to maybe participate a little bit. I mean, obviously, Marlon has been laying the ground for all the things
Ooh,
that
questions.
might actually be happening. So if you've ever maybe felt lost or misunderstood in a foreign country or in a multicultural team, I want you to type culture shock in the comments and tell us the country and what the situation was. And let's just hear stories from around the world of how people navigated with cross-cultural interactions. Now, Mullen, I mean, obviously, this has now become your bread and butter and what you're doing, and things of that nature. You've brought us into your world. You've shown us where things have been and where you've moved. Where are you off to next? Are you gonna stick around, Brazil, or are you gonna keep traveling? Or
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? By the time I'm happy in Brazil, we're close to family, which is an important value for us. So after 15 years living abroad, it's good to be close to family.
right?
By the time we're enjoying that, and I'll continue to help my expats the way I can, and that's it. Who knows? Who knows next?
All right. So just give us maybe three things that, let's say, for some reason, Australia is calling. What would the first thing that you would look at, and what would you do so that people can actually just get something practical they can use immediately?
Right. So if you're going to a country, either Australia, Brazil, Switzerland, I don't know, right? How much do you know about the country? That's a good point of start. Research about the country, research about things that you shouldn't do in the said country. I mean, you're going to China, you're going to Shanghai. What shouldn't you do in China? You're going to Vietnam, right? So research about those countries. And I think we are probably in the best time of our lives to do that. There's a lot of practical information everywhere. If you were moving for more than a year period, normalize the experience, right? It's okay to have some good moments. It's okay to have some bad moments. It's okay to sit down on the couch during the weekend and do nothing Saturday and Sunday because you're tired. It's okay. It's okay. Your body's adjusting. You're trying to adjust. There's a lot of information everywhere that you're trying to make sense of. Try to observe as much as you can. So grab a coffee, sit down by the cafe and look at people. What are they doing? How are they dressing? How are they touching, not touching? What is the distance? What is the... So observe and try to make sense of what you're looking, because that's all cultural.
Yeah.
That's all cultural.
Absolutely. It's so practical what you've just given us, and I can't thank you enough for the time that you have spent with us. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Wow, what a journey. And I think you just pulled back the curtain on culture, identity, mistakes, and above all, reinvention. And also, there's a lot of hard-earned wisdom that only you can pick up based on, like you said, sitting in a culture cafe and just watching people. You will be able to pick up on a lot of things. And I'm certain a lot of our listeners are already seeing patterns in their own lives that actually resonate with what you just helped us see.
Good.
There. All right. So for those that are watching or listening right now, if you've ever maybe had to walk between cultures, whether you're an expert or maybe a global team leader, or you're just simply collaborating across culture lines, I hope this episode has brought you that much needed information that is needed. And I actually encourage you to share this episode with somebody who's about to move to another country, or somebody who's about to expatriate to another country. I think this will be the best gift you can give them as a parting present.
Also, Prosper, I do think intercultural knowledge and intercultural intelligence is what we're missing a lot in our, post-globalized world, right? Because, I mean, who is assuming a position of leadership that is not in contact with other cultures these days?
You're absolutely right. And when a president gets into power, the first thing they do is declare war on all other cultures without even realizing either
and
war
that
or
goes
tariffs.
to show exactly, but that goes to show how much we are missing intercultural intelligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I really appreciate what you have brought to this show today, and everybody who's listening, made this episode just really shift your window, spark new insights, and really help you prosper in whatever place that you are planted. Okay, so some people would show up and say, oh, I'm only going to be here for 2 years, and don't try and enjoy the time. Marlon says, go in, have a coffee, watch people. So wherever you are in the world, do that. See how people are interacting with each other, and it will actually improve the quality of your life. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep thriving across cultures. Bye for now.